Ruben Martinez joining me from Houston, Texas, broker and founder of City Insight Houston. Ruben, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Jeff, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad you could. I'm glad we were able to work this out and connect. Great to have you on. I've been looking forward to this conversation. We're going to talk about your social media in a little bit. That's how you and I connected initially.
Absolutely.
But before we dive into that, Ruben, tell me a little bit about what led you to a career in real estate. What inspired you to pursue this career?
Yeah. So, I did all kinds of sales jobs coming up and after high school and during college. And I landed a job working for a company called Greystar doing property management. I did that for quite a while, moving up the ranks while working for the company. I mean, I started anywhere from, as a leasing agent all the way to property manager, and just got the insights of what it takes to rent out a property. And then, one of the things that inspired me getting my real estate license is that an agent came in with the owner and they were able to sell the whole entire complex, right? And I felt that, I did most of the work of getting the property, occupied. And then he came in, kind of did his thing, and he was able to sell the property and made way more money than what I made. So I was like, you know what does this person have that I don't have? And at the time, what he had is that he had his real estate license. And one of the most important things in this business is the relationship with the owner, right? So I didn't have relationships of that caliber at the time, but I can get my real estate license. And that's kind of what inspired me to get into this industry.
I love that story. Yeah, I've actually close friends here locally who are brokers that I work with very closely, and they're highly successful, amazing agents, and they actually got their start in property management, and then starting at leasing agents, and then up to property management and so forth. So I feel like there's a lot of things that you learned during your property management career that probably have served you well in the real estate on the retail side. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it translates very well. And a lot of the things that you do when you're working, even as a leasing agent, I think they make really good sales agents in real estate, but you get to work with people constantly, right? And you can be buying, $1 million property, or you can be looking for your first lease. And I feel that a lot of the same questions come up when you're helping that type of client, right? So I think it translates very well into this industry.
You mentioned also the one of the two things that agent had that you didn't have was the relationship with the owner. And
right.
Yeah, I love that you, like, my ears perked up when you mentioned the word relationship, because that's a word that's mentioned and repeated often by successful agents on this podcast. And that is, and that sentiment of how real estate is a relationship business, first and foremost. And what I've noticed among, commonality among the most successful agents and brokers is that ability to form relationships and nurture those relationships over time. That might be a good segue actually to get into, kind of like how, well, first let's talk about when you founded City Insight Houston. And I have a tendency to get off topic and go off course. So let me follow my outline here. City Insight Houston, when did you found that? And share a little bit of the details about what you and the team do there.
Sure. Yes. So I became a broker here for City Insight Houston in 2020. Before that, I partnered up with another broker that is kind of just like I was managing a brokerage with him, but I basically owned City Insight Houston that I came up with. He was more just on the accounting side and dealing with like the day-to-day process and procedures of keeping everybody in compliance, right? While I kind of learned, like I said, I come from management. So managing a team is also one of my big things that I was able to transfer over into this side as well when it came to helping other real estate agents. So I would say, we did begin in 2018, but 2020 is when I became the broker owner of City Inside Houston. And to kind of go dive a little deeper into what do we do that's a little bit different than a lot of other brokerages is that we do have a full-time staff in here that help out. We have an office manager that helps out all the agents when it comes to getting them trained up from the moment that they get their license to the point where they're, helping out multiple clients. We also have a full content studio here in the office with a award-winning photographer and videographer that have been shooting houses for many years before we hired them on board. We also have a full-time recruiter, and then we also have seasoned agents that also are nice enough to coach our newer agents as well. So plus also on top of that, something that every brokerage should need are transaction coordinators. And we assign those to agents that are, a little bit more seasoned because for new agents, we want them to learn the ropes, know what they're doing, so they can then, check work and know that the transaction coordinator is actually coordinating with like the title companies and the lenders and things like that.
A lot of support there in the office for your agents, it sounds like.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel that I spend too much money on support for the team. So, one of the things that I do push on all the agents is to use all the support, use all the tools and resources that we offer. Because as a broker, another thing that I do is that I check out my competition, which I don't see other brokerages as my competition. I see that, there's enough to go around for everybody. But I want to see like, okay, what are people offering compared to what I'm offering? And what are people charging compared to what I'm charging? And right now, I do leave a lot of things on the table. Yeah, I spend more on support than what I should, but, at the end, it pays off. So it works out for us.
But I'm sure it's appreciated by the agents in the office, and it's probably a great asset when it comes to recruiting talent as well. Would you say that's true too?
Yeah. One of the recruiting tactics that we use is using those resources, right? So for example, we recruited not too long ago a really top talent in the area. And, one of their questions to us is like, okay, I'm already producing more, what can you do to elevate what I'm already doing, right? And we audited everything that she was doing, and we saw that she wasn't putting out content, one. And two, she was too busy with working each client that the experience that she was giving all her clients was very transactional. It wasn't a very good experience, right? And what happens is that if you're working with so many clients, at the end of the day, you should have a lot of referral business with your past clients and the people that you come in contact with, right? So just setting up her systems and the process and procedures that make it easier for her to automate the process and procedures of like, let's say, for example, if, how many times do you touch, let's just start from the beginning, right? If somebody gets a lease, right, people are like, oh, I don't really do leases as a real estate agent. I want to focus on sales, right? But if you're a brand new agent, they say that it takes anywhere from, 3 months, 6 months. Sometimes I hear brokers say, hey, you're not going to make a sale in a whole entire year, right? That's because you're focusing on only big ticket items when you can do so many leases a month because somebody needs to move on the first, right? And we know that for a fact. So if we can close 3, 4, 5, 6 leases a month, right? The next year, if you're following up and you're staying in contact with them and you're touching them 3, 4 times a month with emails, texts, holiday notifications, things like that, then 20% of the people that you've leased in the past year are going to buy the following year. And it's whether they keep you top of mind, they're going to use you, or like some agents that don't do that, they're going to lose it to another agent that did follow up or stayed in contact or met them at an open house. Having those systems in place so people don't fall through the cracks is one of the things that we also focus on here as well.
You've mentioned, I love that you brought up content, and that top producing agent, one of the areas that you saw for improvement was content production. Obviously, I'm a huge advocate for digital content in all types of different forms, YouTube, podcast, social media, long form, short form, you name it. What are some of the ways that you recommend agents produce content to help grow their business? What are some just core ideas that you advocate for?
Yeah, so from the beginning, right, when you first start, one of the things that I push is, you want to put out 2 to 3 pieces a day if you can, written in video form, right? And then every now and then you want to post your picture. Picture doesn't really, generate that much traffic anymore, but continuously every single day I'm posting, 4 to 5 times on my stories just to keep people engaged that I exist. And then I have my reels that I post. I try to do two to 3 a day, and I push that. But when I do push that, it's like, who are you talking to? Right? You can't just today target buyers, tomorrow target sellers, renters, commercial, right? So it's more of like finding out, all right, what are the top frequently asked questions that, buyers have, sellers have, and then speaking to their problems. So when you first join us and we audit what you're doing, first is that we like to tailor it to whatever you're trying to target. So if you're targeting a buyer, we'll then create, when you first come in, we'll do your headshots. Then we'll do an introductionary video of you basically introducing yourself. After that, we'll do 3 to 4 pieces of content of you basically saying why they should use you if they're trying to buy a house and targeting some of the questions that they might have. And then we'll help you schedule those out. And every Wednesday we have Media Wednesday here at the office, which is crazy that today's Wednesday and we're having this podcast. So it's a good piece of content for myself as well. But yeah, so we'll develop your content here. We'll shoot it. We'll edit it. And then, we'll put it on the calendar for it to be posted on your social media. So Facebook thing, right? For Facebook is still a place to post. Instagram, it's what where the most engagement I feel is for my network. But LinkedIn, TikTok, you should be posting on there as well. So we do push content to be put out constantly, literally. And also it doesn't have to be highly edited all the time, because our team wouldn't be able to handle that. But, you have your phone, go out, do some tours, go to new construction, put out a piece or 2, like I said, every single day. And then you have your highly edited videos that also you're putting out at least, once or twice a week.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love that point that not everything has to be technically produced to a high level, right? And doesn't have to be refined. Some of it can be pretty scrappy. And just, you got your camera in your phone. Everywhere you go, you got your camera. So I agree with that too. I think that content, especially when video is underutilized still. A lot of agents might feel like, no, every agent does that. No, I think there's a lot that still need to apply that to their marketing for sure. I think that there's a lot of opportunity. And it's just a great way. Video, nothing connects better than video.
Absolutely. Another thing that I tell agents too, right? Like, if you're going to the gym, you're going out to parks, it doesn't always have to be real estate related. Sometimes people want to feel that they connect with you, from something that you do. It doesn't always have to be real estate. That can get boring very quick, right? So I try to find hobbies. I try to stay busy in different aspects just so I can connect better with people, out there. One of the things that works out for me is that the fact that I am like intentionally trying to do hobbies and do other things, it also helps me to network and build relationships with other people that if I would have just, stayed home, watched TV and work on real estate, it wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have built those relationships that have turned out like the return on investment on just my time. Like I do jujitsu on, I want to say like once or twice a week, but just from there, I've been able to sell homes for people that do jujitsu with me.
Yeah, finding your tribe, right? We talk about that a little bit on this podcast too, about how important it is to have some sort of way to engage with your local community. And if we've used those agents I was speaking of earlier are big into a running club, so they have amazing connections in their running club here locally. I've picked up pickleball like the rest of the world, so I've been enjoying that a lot, and that's such a social sport, right? My pickleball club has a full bar, and
Right.
so
That's awesome,
it's totally a social sport. But yeah, I love that. I think that that's really important to make sure that you're getting out and finding some sort of social outlet, some sort of activity that,
Absolutely.
yeah, I totally agree with that. Do you guys produce a podcast there in the office?
It's crazy, right? So we used to have a podcast, I want to say a couple years ago, and then we had a break in our old office. It was around the holidays. That's usually when that kind of stuff happens. But they completely like cleaned us out, right? Like just took every piece of equipment. It was a dark time. And
Yeah, that must have been gut wrenching.
oh, it was, and I'm a solo owner, right? So like no investments, no loans, anything like that. It was just whatever what I produce. It's kind of how I got to where I was at. And so I didn't want to, file a claim on the insurance, only because I didn't want that to increase. So we're back, and we're more than just back, right? It was a while back, but we built our studio out again, and we just launched clips, right? So I've noticed that there's long form, but then the clips actually do really, really good. So we just launched our first episode, I think it was like last week, with Ruby Zapata, and those clips are, they do pretty good. And then our next episode will drop this week as well, but they come out in clips. And then we have the long form episode that we'll be putting on Spotify and YouTube pretty soon.
Yeah, I was just looking at the clip from, let's see, when was that? You said last week. Yeah, so there's some clips on your Instagram feed. And that's why I asked about the podcast. It looked like you were producing a podcast there. But I love that too, because yeah, the clips are really the best way to repurpose a podcast anyway. So so that's a great way to just, that's a great idea for a podcast, to produce a shorter form, punchier type of content that's easily shared on social media. Because the long form stuff, social media wasn't meant for long attention spans, right? So
Right.
you got to maximize social media. The clips make a lot of sense. So that looks great. The videography, the studio, everything, like the lighting there looks really, really good. I'm a little envious. I need to build something like that here in my office. So it's on the list. Trust me.
You're going to get it. You're already speaking it into existence. I believe it.
That's right. Let's talk a little bit about how, your mission really, it sounds like, judging by, just our conversation, but also the kind of content that you put out on social media, is you're really driven to help agents grow their businesses. And
Absolutely.
we've talked a little bit about that. And is that, what are some other ways that you help agents grow their business that we haven't already mentioned?
Sure. Yeah. No. So, when I got my real estate license, I went with a big box brokerage. And one of the things that I felt that I was the product, right? That I was being marketed to, and I was being brought in at a very salesy way, right? And, once I was in, you got your basics out of the way, and then you're kind of on your own. And it's like, yeah, you pay for coaching, and you have like a leader in there. You never really meet your broker. And then you have to invest into this business a lot of money, right? People don't know that just your association fees with, like, here in Houston with HAR, if you want the platinum version of that, marketing yourself, you yourself you have to become a social media expert. Content, you have to invest into that time as well. And then also, if you need the resources for, like, let's say, one of the things that every real estate agent knows, right? It's you need your for sale by owner list, your expired listings, you have your foreclosure list, and then you have your for rent by owner list. And those lists don't come easy, right? Like, if you go on Zillow and look up your area and look for a for sale by owner, I mean, they're making it harder and harder and harder for you to target those people. But if you want something that's like a system that's completely automated for you every single day, that updates all the time, that's going to cost you a couple $100s, right? So, So it's an expensive entry to get into real estate, and those are things that people don't really get you ready for. And then on top of that, you also have your broker fees, errors and omissions. You have maybe a franchise fee that you might have to pay. I had to deal with that. I closed my first deal. That brokerage took almost like 50% of my commission. I was like, wait, like, where is the value here? Right. And don't get me wrong. I come from, like I said, from property management. So for me, like I said, a lot of the things that I was already doing kind of translates into that business. So I didn't really need the hand holding that much. So to some, that might be something that they can use, right? And 50% might be okay, right? So after that, I went to a flat rate brokerage where like you have no help whatsoever. If you're a seasoned agent, you've been doing this for a couple of years, you just don't want to take on the liability of becoming a broker, that might be the route for you. But if you're like a brand new agent, or even like for 3-4 years, then and you still are asking constant questions, that might not be the best place, right? So I did pay for coaching, and I basically utilized every resource and connections that I have to kind of teach me the legality, the contracts, all that stuff. And I told myself, once I do become a broker, I don't want any agent to like go through any of those hurdles that I went through. Like, for example, if a broker gives you a brokerage email or a website, the moment you leave, that's all gone, right? So we do have for example, my email is support@cityinsighthouston.com or ruben@cityinsighthouston.com. Everybody has their branded email here, but it's all filtered through their Gmail. So if they ever leave, it's not like I keep any of that information in our servers. They keep all that information, right? Not that we want anybody to leave, but things happen.
Sure.
So, right. So, what we do is that everything that I just mentioned that comes at a cost, we take care of that overhead for you. So that's in one way that we do help. But then also so for new agents, it's really easy to help new agents, right? Because you just have to help them get a few deals here and there, because at first, like I said, things can get expensive if you don't have money coming in. But for like seasoned agents, it's more about creating like a whole entire business for you. And like I said, people look at it, especially with agents, like solo agents, it's very transactional, and they don't have the follow-ups. They don't have the systems in place. They're not sending out any emails, following up, or even just staying in touch for holidays, things like that. They're not doing that, right? So it's like the complete package. So like, for example, like, after a lease, if you do it like, and again, I go back to the leases because I feel that that's where most new agents should get started. If you get a lease and you give them a gift in person, right? They don't want to see you again, right? Like, you're done. That is the transaction. But if you send them another gift to a local coffee shop and send it out through the mail, well, now you're in their mailbox, right? Then you set them up on these, marketing email drip campaigns that stay in touch with them every single month, things like that, right? So now you're touching them continuously and they'll remember you, right? Setting that up, it's something that a lot of agents just, you get busy too quick and you kind of just forget about the actual business aspect and making it a good experience instead of just a transactional piece right there. So we help a lot of agents set that up, and that's where we come in and help. But we also provide them the for sub by owners, foreclosure lists, all those other things that I mentioned. We also provide that for them as well, so they don't have to pay for it.
Yeah, all that data that can be very expensive to purchase if you're a solo, if you're an agent out on your own. You talked a lot of that was about nurturing previous clients, so important, and also automating that process, how important automating that process is. And automating doesn't mean that it has to be impersonal, but you need a system in place. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, you can't think of everything every single day. You have to have a system in place to nurture these clients and stay in touch.
Yeah. No, I mean, at the end of the day, right? Like, how long can we really do this for? Right. So how do we get our time back? right? And if you're trying to remember everything and you're trying to do everything manually, like, I mean, you can do very well. I've seen agents do very well, but at the end of the day, like, for how long can you keep this up? And
Right.
I think, if you can shave off time here and there from some of these processes and procedures that you already do manually, then automation is super important. Which takes me into my next point, right? So we're also, another thing that we do is that we partner up with referral partners that we also give leads out, right? So aside from just your list of, FSBOs and for rent by owners and expireds, another thing that we put our new agents on are like, I don't know if you've ever heard of Opcity. It's they got bought out by Realtor.com, but basically what they do is that we're one of the brokerages here that they're still with, and what they do is that if you're on Realtor.com and you ask for information, they'll send any of my agents here leads, and then if you close them, they take off a bit off the top, and then the agent keeps the rest.
Sure.
So we have that for that, and then we also have a partnership with another company that does that for sellers, and all our agents here are on that program as well. So we also get sellers get sent out to our agents as well.
Tools, a lot of tools to help your agents succeed, and a lot of things that would be really cost prohibitive if they were trying to do it on their own. Yeah. And it sounds like a lot of technology available there at your brokerage as well to help your agents in your office.
Yeah. And, so another thing that I've noticed, and now that we're just kind of on the topic, right? So a lot of brokerages will just give their agent, hey, well, here's your CRM. Good luck, right? But our workflows and everything that we have automated is duplicated and made to every individual agent, with their names being changed, their picture, our logo, things like that. So, and it's pretty self-explanatory, right? Like if you got this buyer, all right, now you put this buyer onto this pipeline. That pipeline will pretty much do everything for you from then on, right? So it's also not confusing, especially for somebody that's not really tech savvy.
I love that. Yeah, that sounds really cool. Let's talk real quick about one more thing about marketing. If we're going to, and this will fall into that category of advice for newer agents as well.
Yeah.
We talked, and you brought this up too, how many different platforms that you can post content to, and there's TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, the list goes on and on. Some are, I think everybody's got their preference. I think Instagram's probably the most popular and in a great way because it's such a visual platform,
right?
To grab some engagement locally. If a new agent, as far as lead generation, brand awareness, generating interest in that agent, drawing in new business, what if they were just going to do one thing, and produce one type of content and on one channel, what would you recommend that be?
If you're brand new, so it's not so much also about, what kind of content it is, right? Because, my following is not your following, right? So
right.
I would say, like, for example, let's say we have an 18-year-old agent, which we have multiple 18-year-old agents, right? Their sphere of influence are renting right now, right? So I would consider doing leasing content for that person, right? If it's somebody more like me, right? People in my age group and the people in my network are buying their second or third home. So it's about using the equity on from your previous home or taking it out, putting your old home for rent and buying your new one, right? I would then focus on somebody like me, focusing on content that's like that, right? So we would audit where you're at right now. What does your sphere look like? Are they renting? Are they buying? Are they sellers? And then I would then curate content around that. The things that I would tell a brand new agent is to put the content out there, right? A lot of people get romantic with the content and they think that doing nothing is better than putting out, let's just be real, right? Crappy content, right? If you're not comfortable in front of the camera, I promise you, the more and more that you do it, the better that you're going to get, right? So, and this is another analogy that I always told myself. No app or any phone came out perfect its first design. The first thing that happens is that it's put out there into the market, and then as it advances, it's updating and updating and updating. So that's what I tell my agents here too, is like, put it out there. I promise you, people are going to not only love your content, but the more that they see you improve and improve and improve, they're going to connect with that as well and feel that it's like an authentic connection, because they've seen you from the point where you didn't really know what you were doing to the point where you're at now. And to see that is beautiful. I mean, people connect with that all the time. People contact me all the time. They're like, oh my God, Ruben, I saw you when you first started and you're here now. It's crazy, right? So that works. I don't know if that answered your question, but if advice to new agents would be to, put the content out there and then just improve on it. And then another thing that happens, right, is that if you put it out there, you get to see, it's like, oh, wait, like my eyes are, I don't look directly at the camera, right? I need to do a better job of looking directly at the camera. Or, I say a lot, I need to find a filler word to fill in the right? So if I'm talking to you and I'm about to say I'll say right, and we'll continue on. So you don't know really, what problems will arise or what to correct if you don't put yourself out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And you also mentioned the word authentic, and authenticity is another, along with the relationship, is a word that is commonly mentioned on this podcast by successful agents. And I feel like that's worth underscoring. I actually skipped over a big thing that you had mentioned earlier, and that was, and you corrected me sort of without knowing it there when you answered my last question about advice for new agents, and that was know who your audience is, or know who your ideal client is. And I wrote avatar earlier when you mentioned something. I underlined it and I forgot to. That's really key, and thank you for mentioning that, because before you start producing content and before I think it's really important to get really, really specific about who it is you're trying to attract and to work with. And to your point, if you're 18 and a new agent, you want to be talking about leases.
Yep.
And, again, it's a long game. This career is a long game. Nothing happens fast. Those leasers will become home buyers. Like,
absolutely.
That's their next step. I love that. Very cool. Ruben, I told you, I only asked for 30 minutes, and we're pushing, we're just over 35 now. These things go by way too fast.
It does.
This has been great connecting. I appreciate all the insights that you shared. Before I let you go, share with listeners who want to learn more about you and City Insight Houston, and the best way to connect with you and the team.
Yeah. So if you want to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram, everywhere pretty much, but Instagram is usually where I get the most engagement. You can find me at Grow with Ruben. Our brokerage is at City Insight Houston. And, I've talked with real estate agents. I try to network with all real estate agents all over the nation. And the reason why is because I also try to have good referral partners, right? That I can send out clients if somebody needs to move to California or wherever they're at. I want to know an agent everywhere. So I have a big list of agents, but having more, so get in contact with me. I would love to engage and just kind of bounce around ideas. I'm always open to that. One of the things that I did want to kind of, before closing out is content is huge, right? So like content is a very big deal, especially for new agents to get out there, but the basics must be done, right? So don't shy away from the tried and true ways that actually work, right? So a few pieces of actual tangible advice that I can give instead of just doing social media is I know this is going to sound like everybody says this, but like know the market, right? When I say know the market, is not just, what's the price per square foot in a certain neighborhood, right? Because it's really hard, especially with agents being in a big city. There's so many different neighborhoods that sell for different prices, right? But for example, go out to new constructions, right? People are out there in new developments looking at houses unrepresented, right? And you should know what these houses are going for, right? What incentives are being offered to these buyers. So if somebody ever comes across you and they're hey, what do you think about this house, right? And and they're shopping in that area, it's very easy to pick up clients that are already in the market, and you don't have to find out whether they're buying or not. They're out there looking for a reason, right? Those same people are also trying to sell their house, right? Another thing, if you live in a safe neighborhood that you feel comfortable in, right, and you see that there's an open house, knock on the doors. Let people know that, hey, look, your neighbor's actually selling their house. These are things that a lot of other brokers probably won't mention because, you're kind of taking advantage of another person's open house, and they probably should be doing it anyways. But if you live in the neighborhood, you feel comfortable in that area, and these are your neighbors, let them know, hey, look, John down the street is selling his house. How long have you been in this neighborhood? People are kind of moving away from door knocking. They're kind of scared, right? Saturdays and Sundays, I'm not going to tell you make your cold calls every single day. If you can get an hour or two every single day, that's fine. But Saturdays and Sundays, people are home, right? If you want to do 2 to 3 hours of cold calls to these very cold leads, make those calls, especially as a brand new agent. And then if you can, right, I don't know what market you're in, but there's multiple places where you can list houses for rent or for sale. Put those houses on there, right? Ask for permission. Or if you have your own listings, put them in other places aside from the MLS and try to get leads that way. And I promise you, you will trickle out more leads, and then you'll start rolling from there.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that advice too. And I also love the point about getting permission, of course, and marketing other agents' listings, helping them market them and market those on your own platform as well, and social media and website, email list. I do that a lot here locally. I advocate for some of my marketing clients here locally to do that as well, who are realtors, of course. Yeah. And I think it's also a great way too of staying in contact and networking with your fellow agents here locally. It's
absolutely
another good way to that's a topic for another podcast episode, but the idea of, all things being equal, if somebody's going to want to do business with someone that they like. So I think Absolutely. It is important to kind of build some relationships and friendships amongst your fellow agents in the community.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. And you're going to also run into agents that have been in the industry for a long time that don't do social media. There was actually, a house that popped up in my neighborhood, and it was decently photographed, right? I reached out to the agent. They're a solo broker by themselves, don't do any social media. I will say, she was a little bit she didn't grow up in the social media age, which it's not too late for anybody. Anybody can really get started no matter what, but she wasn't there and she wasn't doing that. And she was like, Ruben, please, can you do my photos, do a video? If you can have some of your agents host open houses for this house, I would greatly appreciate it. Because what she did have that my other agents don't have is that she has the relationships, right? She's been around for a long time. She has these great relationships. So they keep her busy. So at some point, we're all going to get there, right? If you're nurturing these relationships, which she did a good job of, but she just didn't have the talent not that she didn't have the talent, but she didn't have the people in place to do these things for her. And my agent actually got a sale off that open house, right? They were able to sell a $500,000 house for meeting a buyer from that open house. And then from that, because it came from her, I came back and paid her a referral from that as well. So don't be scared to reach out to your fellow, agents. Some of them might say like, no, we have enough people in our brokerage, but you have your solo agents out there too that could use a hand.
Absolutely. Ruben, we need to circle back. I feel like there's a lot more that we could talk about, a lot more value that we can share with the audience. This has been great. I really appreciate you joining the podcast. I'll have, of course, Grow with Ruben, a link to your Instagram and website on the City Insight Houston in the description for this episode. Definitely want to follow up. Thanks again for joining the podcast, Ruben. Appreciate it.
Jeff, thank you so much. And I also appreciate you. And I like what you're doing. I like that, sharing these brokers and top real estate agents on your podcast. I feel that, everybody has kind of their story, right? But it shares a little bit of snippets and ideas, and it gives tips out there that otherwise other agents wouldn't have known. So I appreciate what you're doing. It's a great thing, Jeff. I appreciate you.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you so much. It's been an honor, and something I really enjoy doing. So. And I can always use the encouragement.
Perfect. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, Ruben. Thanks again.